nervous because I'm here now.
Welcome in, everybody, to another episode of 410 Sports Talk. I'm Glenn Martin here with my co-host James Haskell. And in this episode, we are going to discuss a couple questions posed to us by our Patreons. And they're going to be concerning the Baltimore Ravens offense through the first quarter of this season. But before we get started, if you could take a second, click the subscribe button, give us a like. We appreciate it. If you want to get more in touch with the show, click our Patreon link. You can interact more with the show. But Jimmy, tell us what's going on in 2020 with the Baltimore Ravens offense thus far.
Yeah, so I don't want to get on here and be super negative, right? Like, it's really hard. I think it would be last year was a historical season, and I think it would be unfair to say, well, statistically, we're going to get better. I think that there are ways that we can show improvement while maybe it doesn't reflect, directly in the statistics. But as far as digging in the statistics right now, as far as the offensive side of the ball goes, there are a couple nerve-wracking statistics at this point, quarter way through the season. One of them is that we are 25th in yards. Mm-hmm. And we'll do a little bit of a comparative analysis. I know, Glenn, you got some information about, comparing this to last year. But the other one that's a big concern for me is we are 27th as it stands in first downs. Yeah. That also concerns me. And we are 19th in turnover percentage. So those are some alarming numbers for me. How do they compare to last year, Glenn?
Well, as you mentioned, it was a historic offensive season last year. So the numbers reflect that. Last season, they were first, obviously, in points. They were second in total yards. They were first in first downs.
I didn't mention the points one.
Yeah, they were first in rushing. So as you can see, lots of firsts and really not anything outside of now passing yards is the only spot where they're outside the top 10. But we know when you're number one in rushing by such a landslide that you're going to have to suffer elsewhere, which yards was, but they were number one in the league in passing touchdowns. So while maybe not lighting up in yards, still very, very efficient. To lead the league in passing touchdowns while you're 27th in yards is incredibly efficient. Mm-hmm. So this season, yeah, it's been a downturn from that. We rank right now 7th in points, so still pretty good there. But when you're 31st in passing yards and we're still 3rd in rushing, so still doing pretty good as far as rushing the ball, but they weren't just first in rushing last year. Right. They were first by such a margin that the difference of being first last year and 3rd this year is quite a big drop. So there is some concern. Now, the good news is that they don't have to win playoff games right now, and they're doing plenty to win games. Sitting at 3-1, they lost to, most would agree, is the best team in the league 2 weeks ago in the Chiefs. So they've still not done anything from a win-loss standpoint that shocks anyone. They're still 3-1 in great position to win the North. And maybe it's a good thing, Jimmy, that they aren't hitting on all cylinders, that they still have a lot of work to do, because that growth period throughout the season could show that they end up playing their best football when it matters most.
Yeah, absolutely. What I'm looking for this year isn't necessarily going to be reflected in the stat sheet, but I'm looking for moments in big games, big moments, big games, big plays, big drives, the situational stuff where there is a visible maturation. Now, we did that. I think about the 4th and 2 in Seattle. Those things were steps forward, and we saw more of those as the season went on.
Absolutely.
But I obviously it didn't end well like we wanted to against Tennessee. But so what I'm hoping for is in those high pressure moments, we see better outcomes. Not that they were terrible last year, but obviously when it counted the most, it wasn't what we wanted. So that's what I'm looking for, because like you said, last year was a little bit of a perfect storm, and it led to regular season success. But I want whatever is going to lead to postseason success, right? And I'm sure the Ravens would give up any stat to be firing on all cylinders and have it tuned up as much as possible going into the playoffs, right? Yeah. But, so leading into that, a big proponent of that is, of course, our quarterback, fearless leader, Lamar Jackson. Mm-hmm. And our first question is regarding Lamar himself. So one of our patrons asked the following question. He says, Lamar seems to be quicker to tuck the ball and run this season rather than looking down the field. And this is something, Glenn, that you and I have talked about and you've brought up. There have been a couple of plays where he's not even eyes down the field. He's just out of there. So the question is this due to the offensive line not providing enough protection that he's lacking time to survey the field? I see the problem with him taking off, running faster, compounding because the defense hasn't broken down enough and are still too close to the line of scrimmage to allow him to gain serious chunk plays like we saw last season. So the question is it due to that offensive line play? What's your take?
Well, first of all, Charles, thanks for the question. We appreciate that and the interaction. Yeah, it's a little bit it's puzzling, I guess I would say, because last season we called Lamar Jackson the human cheat code, third down cheat code. And you mentioned that the first downs this season were 27th. Last year we were by far number one. So he doesn't seem to have that he doesn't seem to be the cheat code that he was last season. Now, so why is that? Is the loss of Marshall Yanda that big? Is it because really other than him, it's pretty much the same outside. I mean, I know Stanley missed last game, but is the loss of Marshall Yanda really in Lamar's head that much? Because I think you're right. I think when they're forced to rush, when they're forced to play from behind, man, he didn't handle those moments well. And I think I don't remember. He didn't really look down the field. He looked where can I escape? Where can I use my legs? And then when he has done that this year, I haven't noticed that wide speed gap that he has. You know, obviously he looked great in that 50-yard run this past season, but he doesn't just easily turn the corner and run away from everybody this season. Now, that might be how they're playing him. I'm sure that they're being much more disciplined in their pressures. They're not rushing him like a standard traditional quarterback. They're rushing him guarded. They're making sure they're not overextending themselves and giving up, letting him go by him. So I'm sure that the defenses are adjusting to his play style, and that's affecting him too. But I really think his confidence in our offensive line is definitely weighing on his head. Now, Skura is the same as last year, but is he the same version of himself?
Guy, right.
Exactly. He has the same name, the same number, but is he the same version of himself? And then obviously we talk, Yanda going down from Yanda to Phillips is a massive drop off. And how much is that Yanda factor affecting the play of Orlando Brown, who's next to him, who's not, I don't think, playing to the standard as he put up last season. So I'm not really sure of what the cause is, but I think that we may have underestimated the loss of Yanda and the loss of Hayden Hurst in this offense. I think moving from the 3 tight end offense that we were so used to seeing last season to this more wide receiver driven offense may be causing a little more harm than we thought it would. So, I mean, I don't know. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I am going to bring some positivity to this, and I want
Thank you, Jimmy.
Glenn, I'm going to walk you off the ledge, and I'm going to walk Charles off the ledge. I totally get that. Absolutely, as it stands, the offensive line is not what it was last year. But I do believe that when you have a new unit coming together, there's a potential more than any other unit in football for improvement week upon week upon week. I saw some things in the Redskins or the Washington football team game that made me smile. Kerrigan, the linebacker for the Redskins, officially got introduced to DJ Fluker, who destroyed him on one play in particular that I can think of, and a couple of plays. Aside from their interaction, Fluker to me I'm not an offensive line analyst, but I feel like there were a couple plays where he was asked to be that road grader, and he absolutely did his job and then some. So what I'm trying to say by all this is that I believe that with a healthy Stanley, that with a Bozeman with another year under his belt as he continues to improve, that with Skura continuing to get healthy, and with Phillips continuing to improve, and with Orlando Brown on the right side, I think that we can end this year, go into the playoffs with a better offensive line than last year, based on the fact that our swing guy is now an absolute animal in DJ Fluker. I'm not saying that Phillips, you trade Phillips for Marshall. Obviously, I'm going to take Marshall, but I think that DJ Fluker showed out in the last game, and I think there could be a chance where he gets that right guard spot again. I don't know what it's going to end up being, but as far as depth goes and a unit, I think there's a chance for them to be better, and I think that those things will improve all of the concerns that you have, that Charles has as well about Lamar. It's funny because they always say in sports, winning solves all problems, right? It masks everything. Just like in business, you can have a terrible business behind you, but if you're selling, everything looks like gravy, right? Yeah, as long as that money's coming in. So I think that if this offensive line starts humming, everything else will fall into place. So I have confidence that those things will be fixed in Lamar's game based on our offensive line.
Well, I certainly agree that the improved offensive line will make everything else look better. I don't know how confident I am in the other part of your statement that they could end up being better. I think that, like, if the Ravens had their choice, Fluker would not see the field this season, the rest of the season. I mean, I agree with you that he's, as far as a swing guy, he's probably the best swing guy we've had I can't remember a better one. I mean, when you consider his ability to play guard and tackle, and then also he's talented. He's a big, strong, talented guy. His reach is unbelievable. But I think if the Ravens had to choose, they'd hope he would never play the another snap, a meaningful snap as a Raven this season.
Well, let me ask you this though. I don't disagree with you there, and because you want Phillips to continue to produce and grow and mesh with the unit, have them become one unit. But don't you think that if you had to ask them going into the season, they would have preferred that Fluker played himself into that role instead of Tyree playing himself into that role?
Probably. I mean, I'm sure they expected that. I'm sure that everyone in the building expected before camp started that Fluker would take that job, especially when he shows up to camp in the best shape of his life,
right?
With a clear commitment. So I think you're right. But the thing that Fluker has is that ability. I mean, I know Phillips came in as he was a tackle in college, so I'm sure he has that ability, but I think they're more comfortable with Fluker being that guy. And so I think if they were going to pull Phillips, it would have to be, his play would really have to fall off.
Yeah. But I mean, I think either way though, I guess the reason why I think our line can end up being better as well is because I think that I think that Skura will get healthy every week, healthier and healthier every week. And I think that, there's another year under Orlando Brown and Bozeman's belts. Stanley's more of a vet. He's continuing to improve, but his rate of improvement is not the same as those guys where every game means more. Yeah. And then the other thing is that same thing, but exponentially so with Tyree Phillips. And then of course you got Fluker for depth. So be confident. We got this.
Well, I got another question for you.
All right.
Because Tony posed a question.
Keep them coming. I'm just knocking them down, baby.
All right. Well, Tony had a question, and basically his question is, for our offense to improve, Roman mentioned in the offseason the expansion of the passing game. A lot of people anticipated the expansion of the passing game. But Tony posed the question of, for the offense to get better, do you agree that it's the passing game that needs to improve and that's what needs to be built on in order to improve? Or do we just go back to the bread and butter, go back to being that run heavy offense and just go with that and quit trying to expand to this passing game?
It's funny that you asked me this question. You already know my answer. I'm pretty sure you already know my answer. I think that any Ravens fan that grew up watching 3 yards and a pile of dust with Jamal Lewis, Priest Holmes, all these other guys we've had in the backfield, Ray Rice, McGahee, and things like that, and with a good defense, the way that I've been raised to watch football, I want us to run the ball when they know we're going to run the ball and do it anyway, right? Because if you can do that, we talked about the offensive line as an arm of the offensive line, or at least as the ability to get the offensive line more engaged. When you have them go on the attack, play after play, they're much more excited to run the ball because they get to beat on the defensive lineman instead of the other way around, right? And then on top of that, I think to have the ability to be the best at something when everyone knows you're going to do it and you execute anyway is incredible. I mean,
it's disheartening for the defense, I tell you that.
Absolutely. So to me, I don't think we need to keep up with the Joneses. I don't think we need to run the ball, or I don't think we need to try and be the Kansas City Chiefs. I think we need to be the Baltimore Ravens. I'm going to make a quick reference here. Cool Runnings. Ever seen the movie?
Oh, of course.
Do you remember when they're training, they're trying to be like the Swiss and they copy their tune and this and there. And then they're like, dude, we're not going to be the best at beating, we're not going to beat the Swiss at being the Swiss.
That's right.
We got to be Jamaican. And they come out with their tune.
That's right.
Look, the Ravens got to do the same thing, man. Like, we're not going to beat the Chiefs.
Well, does it worry you that they haven't shown that? So when you're playing a team like the Chiefs, they could jump out at you. Maybe the Ravens decide to take the kickoff, or the Chiefs decide to kick off, we fumble the kickoff, boom, they're up 7-0, and then we come at maybe 3 and out, boom, they're up 14. So what I think the concern of some fans are, what if other teams force us out of that game plan and force us to go to the air, and then we're unprepared to do so because we've been just running this run style offense.
Okay, so this is my rebut to that. It's really simple. Is that it's about creating habits and deception. Greg Roman knows this better than all of us. So even if we're only getting 2.5, 3.5 yards per run, right, and we're still run heavy offense, we're down 7, we're down 10-0. It sets us up for big play moments. Now those might come in the passing game, right? But those passing plays are going to be more effective because even though we're not being very effective in the run in a particular game where they're forcing us out of it, the defense, we're creating a habit, right? The defense sees ball, they go after ball. They see play, they go, and then boom, one play to Hollywood, boom, one big play to Mark. But if we don't have that created, then it won't have the same effect. And I think that's what we're seeing. Teams aren't convinced that we're going to stick to the run. As far as this is my concern overall about our offense, is that in the first half of that game, the Patriots, Kansas City game, when it was actually a game, right? Mm-hmm. And even throughout, there were mistakes, but I think if Cam Newton's in that game, that is a different ball game for sure. They had no one under center, right?
Horrible.
So, but this is the thing about Bill Belichick. Stubborn, he knows who he is as a coach. Mm-hmm. He's very secure in his position. Obviously, he's the GOAT as far as coaches go, I'm pretty sure. And he doesn't change for anyone. I don't mean that he doesn't change his game plan. That would be stupid, right? But he knows what he's going to do. He trusts his own instincts over everyone else's. Mm-hmm. And I think that Greg Roman isn't quite as secure about himself and his plan as a guy like a Bill Belichick or a guy like an Andy Reid, where he's going to go down with the ship. That's my concern. Greg needs to say, I'm dying with the ship.
Yeah.
Right.
And what about, I've heard some say that maybe we should go out and look for a tight end, maybe bring back one of the guys that we released and get back to that more 3 tight end sets. I mean, we've seen enough of Boykin to know what he is, at least to this point, for me to know what he is. He disappointed me last season, and man, he got me fired up with that interception that he didn't finish his route, didn't get his head around, acted as if he didn't anticipate the ball coming his way. What are your thoughts about maybe moving away from and getting back to the 3 tight end set and maybe going and grabbing one of the guys we already released?
Yeah, I'd love to. I mean, I think it sounds good. The only thing is that, you talked about it. It's not necessarily just the 3 tight end set, but Hayden Hurst was a unique talent in that role. And I think that's what we struggle with. So to me, I don't know if it would be worth it to go pick up one of those guys as it would to keep depending on Pat to do what he's been doing, at his
You're not going to find another Hayden Hurst, are you?
Right. They don't grow on trees, right? You know what I mean? He's freaking Thor in a football uniform. Jeez, yeah. But what is your thought about my comments about Greg Roman? I'd like, because I don't know. I think that's an intriguing conversation, but that's my concern. I just noticed that in Bill Belichick that he's completely secure in what he's doing. Do you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, no, I agree. And I think that what worries me is that the Titans employed a similar game plan against the Ravens where they got up in the receiver's face, got physical with them on the line of scrimmage, especially with a guy like Hollywood. And they brought the house, man. They especially the Kansas City Chiefs, man. They were sending blitzes at Lamar, and he looked frazzled, man. He looked nervous behind that offensive line. So that's what worries me, is that now we've seen multiple teams using the same strategy to the same effectiveness is what it looks like. So that worries me. If a team is able to get a lead, which not many have been able to against the Ravens, but if they have been able to get a lead, they press the receivers, they bring more than 5 or more, and we have not as a team shown that they can beat that win against that strategy and come back against with a deficit. So,
but I'll say this though, I agree with you 100%. But I think that the problem is, even though there's like Gus has been put in unfavorable situations to be successful, and he's still run the ball successfully. I'm not saying that in those scenarios he would have the same amount of success. Yeah. But my point is that as soon as we get in a deficit, as soon as we get in those scenarios, there's very little patience and conviction and holding on to our strategy long enough to see it out. You got to have a belief right?
Yeah.
And say, this is what got us here. This is what's going to get us over the hump. Now, I'm not saying just run the ball, but my point is that in a lot of those situations, we're not even creating that same deception to the defense because they already know we're going to throw it and then it's 3-and-out. We're not
Yes,
going to
but
win the
I'm not a
games that
fan
way.
of the empty backfield, and I get the premise of it, to spread the defense out, to give guys like Lamar more space to move, and so I understand it from that standpoint. But I'm not in favor of having an empty backfield, especially on early downs, because it eliminates the deception of the play action and to a degree the run. I know that Lamar could take off on his own, but to a degree it takes down the deception of the run game. And another thing, as far as strategically, I would like to see Greg Roman go to is when you're seeing these press coverages and these man blitzes that teams are sending at us. I know he doesn't tend to run a lot of plays to the running back. If you just look at the amount of receptions for our running backs, it's very, very low compared to league wide, especially when you talk about certain teams that really like to throw it to their running back. We don't really do that. And I think that's a great way to beat those man blitzes that they're sending, is just to send a J.K. Dobbins, a Mark Ingram, or even Gus, who, as far as I know, he's still 9 for 9 in his career,
He
Jimbo, is
is
catching
9 for 9.
targets.
That's right.
So get the running back the ball. We saw the Chiefs do it with Clyde Edwards-Helaire, that, had linebackers and safeties chase him out of the backfield. It's just too hard to get there that quick. And so I want to see, from a strategic standpoint, I want to see Greg Roman use these running backs more in the passing game.
Yeah.
We just don't see it in Baltimore. And we saw nothing with Joe. I don't want to see check down Charlie again back with Joe Flacco, where he, it's 3rd and 11. He checks it down for a 4-yard gain. I'm not saying I want to see that, but I do want to see some strategic use of the running backs in the passing game. These are some of our probably our best player outside of Lamar. These are our best guys with the ball in their hands in the open field. I had big hopes for Hollywood, Jimmy. I had big hopes that he could make guys, and I'm sorry to say it, I have yet to see Hollywood Brown make anyone miss. Have you?
Right.
Have you seen
No,
Hollywood? We know he can do it. Well, we think he can do it, but I have not seen it.
Yeah, no, I'm with you. I haven't seen it yet either. But to get on your comment as well about strategically using the backs, I think what it comes down to is that when, like you're talking about, when those scenarios present themselves, it shouldn't. Lamar's thought, and I believe that it's not just on Lamar. I think that this is also being coached to him. When those blitzes come on, it shouldn't be, Lamar, how soon can you scramble, right, for 12 or 10? It should be, where's my back? Where's my outlet? You know what I mean? And obviously there are going to be scenarios that present themselves where he can take off, but it shouldn't just be instinctively tuck it and go, Lamar. It should be find him, because like you said, it's debilitating. And if your guy's just got to beat one man, you're telling, how many linebackers want to try and tackle J.K. Dobbins in a one-on-one scenario? Good luck, dude. Any of them. Gus is going to run through your mouth and out your backside. Mark Ingram is going to do one or the other, and J.K. Dobbins is going to twist you up like a top.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't get it. These are probably, like you said, outside of Lamar, those 3 are probably all in our top 5 as far as dangerous people with the ball in their hands. So get all 4 of them the ball, including Lamar, right?
I think that would help a lot. I mean, also they're easy throws typically for Lamar.
Just
so
bloop, bloop, bloop.
it gets him in rhythm, gets some confidence. Exactly. It's just like a great player going to the free throw line in basketball. You just need to see the ball drop through the hoop, and then the other stuff starts going. So I think it would help in a lot of ways. And I want to see more deep shots down the field. I want to see just taking more chances. I want to see Duvernay get some shots down the field. I know Hollywood and him have been this close, but they haven't connected yet. I want to see them get some connections there, because I think that when Charles pointed out, was a good point, that defenses don't seem to be back as far, giving Lamar that room. It seems like when he breaks the pocket and breaks contain, there's defenders close by, so
yeah, all the time.
Exactly. I want to see some long routes. I saw a bunch of short, like, comebacks and outs against these tight man coverage. That's just not going to get done. I want to see deep ball. I want to see crossing routes. I mean,
right.
I don't know. I guess we just have, and you're right. I think it was great that you pointed out in the beginning. We have high expectations for the Ravens, and so I guess in a way they're kind of they're guilty of their own success in a way, or like they're prisoner of their own success. There it is. They're a victim of their own success, and the fact that we expect high things from them. When I see, the numbers you pointed out, them being 25th in yards, 7th in points, 27th in first downs. I mean, this team seemed like a nightmare on third down last year, because you just couldn't get them off the field. Now relatively easy getting them off the field. And that affects the rest of the team. That affects the defense. We talked about how the defense has been a relative disappointment this year. Well, I mean, the offense isn't playing the complementary football that it did last year that helped them out. So I
Yep.
think it's obviously this is a team event, and they need to the offense. If the offensive line and the rest of the offense can improve, I think the defense does as well.
Yep, absolutely. So let us know what your guys' thoughts are. The really cool thing about the show is we're going to be doing this once a month with our patrons, is giving them the opportunity to communicate with us, let them know what their questions are, and we'll address them directly on the show. So if you guys want to have that opportunity as well, make sure to check out our Patreon. It's in the link in the description below. But without any further ado, we will talk to you guys soon.
See you.